Hi, my name's Dunbar. I'm a guardsman, and it's my privilege to be your chairman, to share a few words with you today on a chairman's report. And what I want to focus on is that slogan right there, our theme for this conference, the National Guard, an American treasure. As your chairman and as the Adjutant General for the great state of Wisconsin, I have the privilege of traveling around, and I meet a lot of folks. I know a lot of leaders do the same thing. I meet elected officials, I meet business leaders, I meet family members, community leaders, and I'm often asked, because I'm often in uniform, well, tell me about this National Guard that you serve and you love. And I have sort of an elevator speech that I give. And what I do is I refer to our iconic symbol, the Minuteman. And I explain to those who I'm talking to that if you look at that Minuteman and you look at that plow, he's stepping away from his plow, he's picked up his musket, and he's responding. And that plow represents everything in his life that he cares about. In this case, he's a farmer from the 1770s. His farm, his family, his community life. He is setting it aside and picking up his musket. And that is the promise of the National Guard today. That on a bad day in America, or anywhere around the world where America is needed, the National Guard will set aside its plow, pick up its musket, and respond and do something about it. The National Guard is an American treasure because of the promise that we will be there on the worst night for this country. If I have a little more time, I talk about the people who wear the uniform, just like you, the men and women who wear the uniform. Because you know it's easy to talk about leaving your plow and picking up your musket, but you know how hard it is to do. And so many members of the National Guard who serve, who have served since 1636, who serve today, have figured out a way to not only earn the right to wear this uniform, qualify to an Army or an Air Force standard, but have to figure out how to balance their lives. And they do it magnificently. They have their own businesses they own. They work for companies, they're doctors, they're lawyers, they're raising families, and somehow they manage to balance that all and do it over and over again. 430-some thousand patriots doing it right now, millions since our country was formed. The National Guard is an American treasure because of the men and women who wear the uniform. Sometimes friends tell me that this symbol's out of date. I just don't buy that. I don't know how you feel about it, but I think this symbol is exactly what we need. And I'll tell you why. Thank you. I want to tell you why. Because Emerson wrote, by the rude bridge that arched the flood, their flag to April's breeze unfurled. Here the embattled farmer once stood and fired the shot heard round the world. Those earliest militiamen in Concord, on one side of the North Bridge in April of 1775, drew a line in the sand and told the king they had been pushed far enough and would be pushed no further. And they fired on the greatest army on the planet at the time. You can't back away from that. Fight was on, and they marched all the way to Yorktown. Not by ourselves. Then, as now, as part of a total force, led by a great active duty commander. You may have heard of him, a fellow named Washington. By the way, a guardsman from Virginia. That's right. And the National Guard has been part of every major conflict since the victory at Yorktown. The National Guard is an American treasure because of the role that we played in our revolution and have played since the victory was secure. But what's even more important, more impressive, and if you get nothing else out of what I'm saying, if you just get this, I think I've made my point. What happened next after the victory at Yorktown, that was critical. Because the country, after securing its victory, had to figure out what kind of government we're going to have. So they sent some folks to Philadelphia and they crafted a constitution and they ratified the Constitution, but you have to understand, they didn't ratify a constitution and create a federal government so that the people of America could get down on a knee and say to the government, will you please give us rights? We'd like the freedom of speech and religion. We'd like to keep and bear arms. We'd like to peaceably assemble. No. We had just fought a revolution telling the most powerful person on the planet, the King of England, that those rights were God-given rights. And we claimed those rights and formed our own country. So they created a federal government with a constitution to guarantee those rights. And that's why when you look at Article 1, Section 8, and you see the National Guard as the foundation of our nation's defense, they did that because they created a republic and they wanted to defend it. And they knew they needed the citizens involved in that defense. And so they assured that the state had a role to command the National Guard until they were needed on the federal stage, that the governor was responsible for training the National Guard and appointing the officers. And Congress, which has full authority to defend this country, could call the National Guard out to do three things: repel an invasion, put down an insurrection, and execute the laws of the land. But things changed since 1770, and about 100 years ago, Congress added to the responsibility of the National Guard. They didn't take anything away, but they said, when we need you to go someplace outside of the United States, we're going to draft you or mobilize you into the Army or the Air Force. And the National Guard is an American treasure because we are a proud part of our United States Army and our United States Air Force. I would say we're the best battle buddy the Army ever had. We're the best wingman the Air Force ever had. Every member of the National Guard is 100% American soldier, 100% American airman. But my friends, ladies and gentlemen, we are more. We are the National Guard, codified in our Constitution as a state force until needed for federal duty. Extraordinary. Another poet, this one from New Jersey, a guy named Springsteen, he wrote a song called Long Walk Home. And the boss wrote, quote, "My father said, son, we're lucky in this town. It's a beautiful place to be born. It just wraps its arms around you. Nobody crowds you. Nobody goes it alone." And the flag flying over the courthouse means certain things are set in stone. Who we are, what we'll do, and what we won't. End quote. The flag flying over the courthouse means the Constitution is still in effect. There are things that are set in stone. This is a republic and it needs to be defended. And today, just as in 1775, just as in 1789 when we ratified the Constitution, this country relies on the National Guard, the citizen soldier, the citizen airman, a citizen first, a soldier and airman when needed, to be the foundation of our nation's defense. There are things that we will do. We will set aside our plow and pick up our musket on the worst night in America, and we will answer the call. And when we come forward to join our Army and our Air Force, we will bring America with us. our families, our employers, our communities. And there are things that we will not do. We will not compromise on the words of our law. We are a nation of laws, not of men. We are the National Guard, an American treasure, because of our legacy, because of the men and women who wear the uniform, because of the role that we played in establishing this nation, because of the fact that we're a proud part of the United States Army and the United States Air Force, and because we are the foundation of our nation's defense. The National Guard is an exceptional American treasure, and it is worth preserving. I'm all in. How about you?